In this lecture, we are going to see how we can access the options relating to application of different kinds of constraints as well as loads inside both versions of the software. So, coming to the ANSYS 18.2 software, if you want to access the options related to application of loads and constraints, you just need to come to the static structural group in the outline tree. And once you select the static structural group, see here the context menu toolbar has changed, and here are different options through which you can apply different kinds of loads. If you want to apply inertial loads, you need to come to the inertial group. If you want to apply different types of loads, you can come to this particular loads group and select what kind of load you want to apply on the geometry. Likewise, coming to constraints, you need to come to the supports group, and in the supports group you will be able to have access to different options which will be used to create different types of constraints. And in addition to all of these things, you can create what are known as constraint equations using this conditions option. In addition to that, if you want to apply the loads or any conditions directly on the mesh, you have to come here to the direct FE options. So this is one way we can access the options that are available for applying different kinds of boundary conditions. Then in addition to this particular way, what we can do is we can come to the static structural group, and in the static structural group I will just right click, and once I right click I will go to the insert option, and once I go to the insert option, see here whatever the options that were available in the context toolbar, all of these options are highlighted in the form of a list here, and from this list you can easily select that particular entity which you want to apply, and once you select that entity you can easily apply it to the geometry. So this is how you will be able to access the options that are required to apply different kinds of constraints as well as loading conditions inside older versions of ANSYS Workbench software. Now I will switch you to the newer version of the ANSYS mechanical software. Now coming to the newer version of ANSYS mechanical software, if you want to access the options relating to application of loads and constraints, you need to come to the static structural group, and once you select the static structural group, here you need to come to the environment tab, and in the environment tab you will be able to access different options like inertial forces, other types of loads, supports as well. And in addition to all of these things, you can have conditions, and also you can go for direct FE or application of loads or boundary conditions directly on the nodes itself rather than the geometry. So if you observe, there is one other change is whatever the major type of forces or loads that we use, those three kinds of loads have been separated out from this drop down menu, and likewise what are all the types of supports we'll use, those have been separated out, and the rest of the other kinds of supports or let us say constraint conditions have been grouped into one group, right? And in addition to that, if you want to access all of these options, you can also come here to the static structural group and right click and say insert, and you will be able to access all of those options in the form of a list like in the older version of the ANSYS mechanical software. So these are the two different ways in which you can access different types of options relating to the application of loads and constraints inside the newer version of the ANSYS mechanical as well as the older version of the ANSYS mechanical software.